All right, thank you everyone for coming. We've packed this room out today on our final PinDevCon interview session. We're trying to spend time with all the people that brought homebrew games to the Northwest Pinball Show this year. This is our PinDevCon inaugural experience. We're trying out what it would be like to have a more engaging, immersive experience around making pinball machines. We got the chance to get Planetary Pinball and CoinTaker sponsored our get-together last night. We rolled a bunch of pinball machines up to the Union Room at the Marriott Hotel next door. Got to spend time talking and meeting with everybody. And this is the last interview I have to do today. So this is our first time getting to hang out in real life. You know, we've met at shows before, but what brought you to the show? Introduce yourself.
I'm Sean Irby. I've been coming to the show since I got into pinball in 2016. And I came here to play the tournaments, but for this particular show, I wanted to bring my game, and it's its first public showing.
That's very cool, and I think that I've spent some time getting to watch the game and stuff like that, getting to play the game and stuff, and it's cool to see how immersive you got the theme of something that could seem so simple as playing pool, but actually added a lot of depth to it. Was that an idea that you had and you started with, or what got you to what the game is now?
So the design started with me wanting to make just a straightforward, fun game, and when I think about that, I think about the 8-ball games that Bally made in the late 70s and 80s. And so the idea was just to take some inspired geometry from each of those games and to put it into one playfield.
So it's got a lot of big visual cues. I mean, that little cue balls,
yes,
balls, all that kind of stuff. So did you design all those yourself and produce that stuff?
Yeah, I got really into learned a bunch of stuff while learning how to make a pinball machine, but my favorite part was by far the 3D modeling.
Okay.
So yeah, I modeled it all in Fusion 360 and 3D printed that stuff. And in some cases, I used those 3D printed parts right on the playfield, and for others, I made molds for them and cast them so I can make big, clear parts that could diffuse light.
Yeah, I mean, those targets up the side with the colored balls and stuff like that. I mean, it's like looking at candy. It looks beautiful. It lights up in a fun way and stuff like that. So it does take I think a lot of it, especially when you go back to those older games, they had insert lighting and targets, and that was the whole mechanism. But you took the classic simple game, but then added new visual cues to make the game look so rich.
Yeah. For that section with the ball targets, like you're talking about, that 8-ball deluxe, that's what that area of the playfield is inspired by. That they had a drop target there, or a bank of drop targets, and it's really satisfying to hit those. But those, I could only fit stand-up targets in that area, so I had to make them as interesting and fun and satisfying as I could. So I used light shows and sound effects to make up for that.
That's very cool. And so I think a lot of us, in this day and age with 3D printing and stuff like that being so much more accessible, being able to use that as a tool in design, all of us needed to learn how to do it. So I mean, for so many things I've learned later in life, it's all been, here's this cool thing I want to see exist, and I'm going to learn how to do it and build it and design it and make it. And I think that's something that has definitely been a unifying thought amongst everybody that's doing homebrew pinball. It's another excuse for a new tool. Buy a new tool, build something new. So do you have your own 3D printers and all that kind of stuff, or you other existing?
Yeah, I went 6 months into starting the project, I had bought my first 3D printer and learned how to use it to make parts for the machine.
Dude, very cool. So all right, so this is your first pinball machine.
Yes.
But do you ever aspire to do it again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
I can't wait to do another game because I've just been working on this one for a while.
So do you have an idea of a finished point? Is that game ever finished, or you just do you have a checklist of things to refine?
Art on the playfield. That's a big one, and reaching a level of player feedback and polish on the display that I feel is good, then I'll call it finished, I think.
I mean, whenever I'm, we've been talking about wanting to get together and do this interview here during the days. Anytime I watch you, it's like you're standing over shoulders watching people play. Do you get a lot of feedback of just observing the players in real time?
Yeah, because other people play it differently than I play. I'm more of a control player, and then some people just sort of fire away whenever the ball comes near the flippers. So I just want to see how other people approach it and what's what's clear to them, what's unclear. Have a whole page of notes on my phone from
that's awesome.
watching people play after today.
Well, I think that's also really. So you said you play tournaments and stuff. So you're a tournament player. So you're good at playing pinball. So when you're designing a game, like, did you find that you were able to apply a lot of that experience of playing to the mechanical game, or was it a frustration of like trying to play the game in a way that like feels smooth and normal, like turning what was in your mind for an idea into the mechanical experience? Like, what was that like for you on this first game?
It's like I want the shots to feel satisfying, and I want the rules to be fair. Like, I think about my other friends that are competitive. If they stepped up and played it, like, what would they point out in the rule set as being like, oh, that's lame, you can't have that in there. You could cheese that shot all day.
It's gonna be exploited. Like, yeah. But I do think I like the way that you've got the upper left section there. We were talking the other day about the spinner shot that you hit up there and the magnets that's up the top. Those little surprises, that, like, you can't quite see it, but something happened up there. It's like I found myself after my first game moving around to the side of the machine to figure out what the heck was even going on up there, So it is fun to see, like, different elements brought into games, and they don't need to be massively complex. Sometimes it's just elegantly placed and integrated. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'd say, so what do you do? What is your next game idea going to be? Like, have you thought about that?
Yeah. I've started laying out some ideas for an Operation themed pinball.
Okay. You're talking about the game, like, don't touch the sides, kind of.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just right now trying to figure out the best way to do the finesse. Maneuver and trying to translate that into pinball. There's a few different ideas I have.
That is so cool. I mean, and I think that's going to have like an instant association. I mean, as kids, like that anxiety of like trying to hit the right thing and stuff like that, But I think that like in pinball, there's so much of that inherently in playing pinball. You're all trying to keep from draining anyways, So I think that would be very interesting to see how you can translate that experience of like not touching the sides into the pinball anxiety in a different way. That's really cool. So, all right. So, it's Sunday at the show, and you've been watching people playing the game. Like, have you seen anything? Have you broken anything you didn't expect? I mean, this has got to be its longest run in public. Right?
Oh yeah. I was really happy with how well it performed over the weekend. There were 2 crashes on Friday.
Okay.
And on Saturday, someone found a multiplayer ball lock bug that cropped up twice. Okay. And today a sling bolt kind of came out of the playfield, so I had to replace that.
Played a ton, There's those things that you don't understand where the fatigue is going to come from until you've actually seen it played that whole time.
So overall, I think it was a success.
Well, and I think that's also what is really cool about getting out to these shows and stuff too. Is it's like we can noodle around in the garage or the shop forever, but it's like at some point you got to be like, I got to put this, box it up, and bring it to a show. And I think that's where, like, again, like, we've talked in other interviews and stuff like that that we're doing here about the idea of, like, a lot of people think pinball is cool. A lot of people, you might share the fact that you're making a pinball machine and go, oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. But then there's a certain group of us who've been in those trenches and appreciate all those frustrated long nights or those eureka moments and things like that. So that's really what, like, that camaraderie and that, like, shared experience is about, because we all get it. We've all seen how hard that is, and the heartbreak of getting it to a show and seeing something break. But it's kind of cool to know that, like, there's tons of people here who would love to jump in and assist with something. I mean, I've seen people sharing parts back and forth and replacing things. And that's just really great to see. So one question that I've been asking everybody right now is, like, getting into these games, everybody's got their hard part. The thing that, was always most challenging, that you enjoyed the least. Like, how did you... what was it that you identified as the hard part, and like, how did you overcome that to get your game to be what it is today?
So I think a hard part was becoming comfortable with the fact that you have to maybe set it aside for some time. Because there were several, like, long stretches of breaks during this project where, like, I was like, I can't work on this anymore. I'm kind of burnt out.
Yeah.
And eventually I realized that it's like, that's not me giving up. I just have to, set it aside for a while and come back to it.
I mean, I think that's really wise too. I mean, you get to the point where you're just kind of beating your head against the wall and you're not making progress. You don't want to let that disenchant you from the project itself. So I think that sometimes a little time away, the distance makes the heart grow fonder, and you're back to working on your homebrew pinball machine.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fantastic. I mean, we've been talking for 10 minutes about this game. I mean, I think that it was really great that you brought it out. I'm glad we got to spend time together here. This is our first PinDevCon experience, and I think that it was a big success. We're going to do something greater next year, and I hope we bring another game back with you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I will.
Thanks so much for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you.